Hey, what's up? It's PDX Guitar Freak, and in this video we're going to talk about the latest patch I've created for the Line 6 Helix. This one's called Crunch Rhythm, and as the name implies, it's intended for a crunchy hard rock or metal tone. Kind of a late 80s tone, if you will, given how amps were kind of changing and progressing throughout that decade and toward the end. And if you like this patch and you want to download it, you can find it on the Line 6 Custom Tone website. I'll put a link down below where you can go directly to that. Now there's a couple things I want to mention before we dig in which are really important. First, there are two versions of this patch, version A and version B. The primary difference between the two is that version A uses a third-party impulse response, or IR, as most Helix users know, and version B does not. Version B simply uses one of the built-in speaker cabinet models. Now version A is the version I actually use, but I decided to add version B because I know some people don't want to buy IRs, and I wanted to give those people an option. If you want to use version A, you can purchase the IR from 3 Sigma Audio. I'll put a link down below. As of the time I'm recording this, they sell the IR for $7 US. Also, I want to make it clear that I have no affiliation with 3 Sigma. I don't get anything for promoting their IRs. I just like them. The second thing I want to mention is the guitar that you're hearing in this video. It's a 2018 PRS, Paul Reed Smith Custom 24 from their core line. It's got the 8515 pickups in it. You'll hear the bridge pickup only. And I think it's important to call out the guitar I'm using because obviously whatever guitar you use is going to add its own flavor to it, right? And then finally, I want to give a shout out to a guy named Ben Burnett. We got in contact via YouTube and have been sharing patches with each other lately, and he's been a really helpful sounding board for me, and his patches sound really good too. And I'm really not kidding when I say this. I've downloaded hundreds of other people's Helix patches to try to get ideas from them, and I've probably only found a dozen that I would actually use. But Ben gets it. He knows how to make the Helix sound like a real amp. Anyway, you'll be hearing more about him from me in the near future. Let's get moving. So the first thing we have in the patch is the noise gate, which is always on. With this one, what you want to do is pay attention to that threshold knob. I usually keep it somewhere between -52 and -60. That seems to be the sweet spot for me in terms of finding the right balance between eliminating noise and sucking out the tone. Because the further you move that threshold slider to the right, the more it eliminates noise, but also the more it sucks out the original tone. So experiment with that threshold setting, but don't take it beyond -50 going to the right. If you go beyond that, you're going to really start sucking away the original tone. Next up, we have the hard gate, and this is optional, and some people might think it's redundant given we just had the noise gate, but they operate a little bit differently. Basically, the hard gate's there to prevent extra noise when I'm doing like lots of starts and stops, right? But that is, I will turn off the hard gate when I'm doing more dynamic stuff where I want to do like picking with my fingers or more softer approaches to picking. I will turn that hard gate off because sometimes it won't pick up the signal because of what it does. Anyway, you can use that hard gate or not. The next thing in the chain we have is the Scream 808 based on the classic Ibanez Tube Screamer. And I've got it set up like you would normally set up a real Tube Screamer for like a clean boost. So the gain's all the way down and the level's all the way up. And ultimately what this is doing within this patch is it's adding that extra layer of crunch that really the amps are lacking in the Helix processor. I found that without the Tube Screamer, you just don't get that real crunch that you get from a real high gain tube amp. So to me, this is an essential part of the patch. You can pull it out if you want, if you don't feel you need it, but for me, I think it's critical. After that, we go into a parametric EQ, and there's a couple things going on here. First, we've got a big 8 decibel cut centered at 250 hertz. What this is doing is it's taking out some of that really woofy low end that you just don't need. And it's funny, it's ironic actually. When I had the Pod HD500, which was Line 6 flagship processor before this, I used it for 7 years. I used it for a long time. One of my complaints about the HD500 is it didn't really have a very ballsy low end. It didn't have like a chunky low end. The Helix, in contrast, is over the top with low end. They overcompensated, I think. So I use the parametric EQ a lot to pull out that woofy low end. We also have a 1.5 decibel cut at the 750, kind of low-mid frequency. And then we've got a low cut at 80 hertz, so anything below 80 is getting cut out, which is very standard when you're recording guitar, right? And then a high cut above 9 kilohertz. After that, we go into the amp, which is the Angel Meteor, which is a play on words. It's basically supposed to be like the Engel Fireball. And there's several things here going on that are really worth mentioning. First, the drive, the gain. You notice how I have it pretty low. Okay, you don't need a lot of gain for this patch. So in the default setting, it's at 1.3, very low. Okay. Now the expression pedal is set up so that as you step down on the expression pedal, it will add a little bit more gain. It takes it from like 1.3 to 1.8. Not a huge addition of gain, but enough that it's noticeable. And depending on the guitar you're using, sometimes you might want to keep that gain a little higher. So that's why I have the expression pedal set up that way. What else is worth noticing? Of course, I've got the bass kind of low, very bassy unit we've got here. You'll see that on the sag and the bias, I pull those back a little bit. I think those are worth calling out. Typically on a rhythm patch, I'll pull back on sag and bias a little bit, and on a lead, because it tightens it up, and on a lead patch, I'll raise the sag and bias a little bit because then it makes it a little looser, okay? Now you'll also notice that I have the mid boost on this amp up. And that really kind of kicks in, it makes it thicker, okay? And I also have the mid boost assigned to one of the foot switches. So what you want to do is experiment with that. Sometimes I turn it off if I want more of a scooped kind of rhythm sound, but when I want it to be really full, I keep the mid boost on. So let me play you a couple examples of some riffs with the mid boost on and then off. After that, we go into the impulse response. And as I mentioned, we have version A, which uses the impulse response, and version B of the patch, which doesn't. For version B, it's using the XXL V30 412. And I had to do some additional EQing a little bit differently for version B. So when you open up that patch, you'll notice some differences from what I've been explaining. But I'm going to play some riffs with both version A and version B so you can hear them side by side so you can make the decision as to which one you'd like to try out. After that, we've got another parametric EQ with, once again, another cut at the 250 hertz frequency. And we also have a cut at the 2.5 kilohertz frequency. That's just getting rid of some of the harsh higher mids to smoothen things out a little bit. And then we've got a low cut at 99 and a high cut at 11 kilohertz. From there, we go into the bottom part of the path and we go into a stereo chorus. Now, the way I use the chorus here is I set the speed all the way down and the depth all the way up. This is not meant to give you a big warbly, cliched 80s kind of chorus sound. It's supposed to be very subtle. And this is how I use a chorus in real life. Well, with real amps and a real chorus pedal. I also set up the chorus this way. It's a great way to kind of give your tone a little bit more depth and texture. I love using this. Now, that said, when I'm in the when I'm not using the mid boost, I like to turn the chorus off. So kind of most of the time when I've got the mid boost on, I keep the chorus on, and most of the time when I have the mid boost off, I'll turn the chorus off. So you experiment with that. You'll see what works for you. After that, you'll notice that the path splits in two. Okay, we've got the delay that's on the continuous path, and then we've got a reverb that's on kind of a separated path, and I'll explain that in a minute. The delay is set for just one 334 millisecond kind of repeat. You don't want a lot when you're playing rhythm. In fact, if I'm playing really fast, more complex type of rhythm parts, oftentimes I'll just turn the delay and reverb off, which I have assigned to the same foot switch. And the reverb is basically set for just a little bit of ambient reverb. It's not meant to be overpowering. Now, again, the reason I want to explain why I have the path split off like that, what that's doing is it's splitting the signal, and it's going, in one part it's going into the delay, and the other part it's going back into the reverb, and then it meets together. What that's doing is it's allowing the delay and the reverb to process the sound separately. A lot of times what people will do, and I'll do this in real life where I don't have this sort of flexibility, I have the delay going into the reverb. So you're reverberating the delay, which sounds fine. But when possible, and you can do this with the Helix, I like having them separate. So you don't have the reverb and delay mixed. The signal's going through both and then coming back together. And then finally at the end, we have one more parametric EQ, and this has got a 5 decibel cut centered at 360 hertz. So again, getting rid of some more of those, the really low woofy end. All right, that was my video on my latest patch, the Crunch Rhythm patch for the Line 6 Helix. I hope you liked it. Leave some comments down below. And hey, if you want to take this patch and make some improvements to it, I would love to hear your version if you want to post it on the Line 6 Custom Tone website. So if you do that, make sure you leave a comment below and let me know what the name of the patch is, and I'll try it out and give you my feedback. All right, till next time, rock on.